Hello. Well, it is day 30 of my coffee journey, and yeah, I figured I would do a bit of a longer video to kind of share some of my overall thoughts and reflections on this journey. Things that I've learned, and yeah, let's start there. For those of you who know me well, I don't like coffee. And so you might think, Lisu, why the heck are you trying to make coffee every morning and drinking it when you don't even like it? And my answer to you is, you're not wrong. So why did I decide to do this coffee experimenting journey? Basically, there was about a month and a half ago, I was up at 3 in the morning because I couldn't sleep, and then I was scrolling through YouTube and came across this video of a dude making coffee, and it looked really interesting, so I was like, you know what, I kind of want to try that. And so I bought the equipment, so I was like, okay, I'm going to try this out and we'll see if it'll be fun, because it looks fun. And surprise, surprise, it turned out that it is actually kind of fun. As I've been doing this for the past 30 days, I found that having the morning ritual of making coffee, especially like a pour over coffee, I feel like if you use like a coffee maker or like a Keurig or something like that, it might not be as fun or enjoyable. But having the morning ritual of making a cup of coffee is really nice, and it's really therapeutic and soothing. And so I think in the mornings, especially during really crazy mornings, having to make a cup of coffee using the pour over method that I've been using, it forces me to slow down for at least 5 minutes of my day. Technically, as I'm doing the recording of my usual Instagram stories, it's been more like 10 minutes, 15 minutes maybe. And yeah, so it's been 30 days. And it's been kind of fun. And it's been kind of terrible at the same time, because I hate the taste of coffee. And by the end of this month, excuse me, I still don't like coffee. But I respect it, I guess. I think coffee, as I've come to learn on this journey, sits on a spectrum of flavors that is basically bitter and sour. And so coffee is either really bitter, really sour, or a little bit of both. And I think in a drink, those are two flavors that I really don't like. And so yeah, I would rather just not be on this spectrum. And yeah, so that's my take on coffee in general, from what I've learned. And I think something else that I've come to realize is that I think I prefer more of the bitter flavors than I do the sour or tart or acidic flavors. A few things I've learned about roasts is that light roasts tend to be a little more acidic, and then medium roasts can kind of sit in the middle, and dark roasts will typically be more towards the bitter end, and they'll be more I don't know what words to use, more robust, more richer, more darker, or thicker in texture and consistency. I don't know how to talk about coffee, so I'm just gonna use words and hope that they make sense. Hot take: the worst coffee is the first and final sips of the cup, because the first sip always overwhelms your palate. And so everything, your senses are just what the heck just hit my tongue. Either you burn your tongue and then you're in pain, or like you taste something that's just like so shocking in the morning, and like it's just terrible. It's an overwhelming flavor profile. And then the last sip of coffee, because the drink is still not done yet. The best coffee is actually the third sip, because your palate has had a chance to like grow accustomed to the actual flavors, and so like you're no longer getting that super strong punch of like either really high acidity or really really bad bitter, and then like you can kind of actually taste it, and like I don't want to say it's enjoyable because it's not enjoyable, but it's less unenjoyable. Moving on, using a finer grind usually results in a more concentrated flavor, but like it causes water to drain more slowly through the grinds. Sometimes the method that you use will also like require the coffee to drain a little quicker through the grinds, and so having a extremely fine grind may not be beneficial. On the flip side, a coarser grind will often lead to less flavor extraction, but it also sometimes works better for a specific style of brewing that you're using, or a specific brewing technique that you're using. For example, the method that I used was invented by a world-renowned barista named Tetsu Kasuya. It's called the 4-6 method, which basically splits your brew into like 5 different pours, and so each pour is separated by about 45 seconds, or each pour lasts for 45 seconds before you add the next kind of batch of water. And so like if you use a grind that is too fine, and then the water doesn't have time to drain within the 45-second time limit, and so it ends up not even mattering. And that happened to me a lot as I was experimenting, because like the manual grinder that I used, it's kind of hard to like get a consistent or like to know where the same setting is every time, because like I would clean my stuff every time I used them, and so like after they've dried out or after I've cleaned them, and it's like, how do I reset it back to like the setting that I used the previous day? And it's like, I don't know, I'm just gonna have to guess, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But that's just me. I think if you have a manual grinder, you're gonna get less consistent results with the coarseness of your beans, but it's kind of fun. Oh, one thing that was really cool, really interesting that I learned on this journey was that like water temperature actually does matter for coffee. So with a darker roast, you want to use cooler water. So like I think for the beans that I use during this this whole experiment, whenever I had darker roasts, like I would settle around 84, 86. Maybe even a little cooler than that sometimes. But yeah, that seemed to result in a brew that didn't like extract those burnt flavors. So it didn't feel like I was drinking burnt coffee or burnt water. But if you have a light roast, you need to use like really hot water, almost boiling, in order to extract the full flavors. Because like I discovered that like with light roast, if you don't use hot enough water, like the coffee will just taste really sour and acidic, and so you only pull like some of the flavors out of the beans if the water you use is improper. And so that was kind of cool. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Like one of the really cool things that I got to try, which was actually a brewing technique that I saw on YouTube during one of those late nights when I couldn't sleep. But yeah, so I got to experiment with ice brewing coffee, which is a technique that uses ice to brew the coffee. The drops of water that melts off of the ice, it filters through the coffee grinds, and then it's able to extract a lot of flavor without extracting like much, if any, caffeine. Yeah, so I found it to be probably the least unenjoyable way to consume coffee. And I think like it's definitely the most fun brewing technique. It takes the longest to get a good result. And sometimes it's a hit or a miss, because sometimes if you let the ice melt too quickly, and then it won't be able to extract flavors well enough. And sometimes if you like slow the process too much by like maybe putting it inside the refrigerator, and then it just won't melt, or it'll like completely stop melting, and so you have to pull it out again. And so it's kind of like you gotta feel it out. Sometimes it works better than others, and weather actually plays a pretty significant role into that. And so summertime, like ice brews are gonna be different than a wintertime ice brew. So I might try some experimenting in wintertime with how ice brews turn out. But yeah, like the results of the ice brew, in my opinion, has always been kind of like, it's had this kind of chocolatey quality. This is the only time I've ever like experienced coffee in a way that matches the description that like some coffee snobs have shared of like, oh yeah, it's got chocolatey notes and it's got fruity notes and like whatever. But yeah, when I tried ice brews, they did have this kind of like chocolatey flavor, like as if like you ate some chocolate, and like when you exhale and like you have that kind of like that chocolate flavor on your breath a little bit. That's kind of what it felt like. And it was really cool. And sometimes like the texture of the drink would be like kind of like thicker and not creamy, but kind of caramelly. And yeah, so it would be kind of rich and robust. But yeah, so ice brews are interesting. They're cool. They're different from cold brews, because cold brews you steep the grinds in water, in like room temperature-ish water for like 24 hours, and so it's a little, you steep it like tea as opposed to like dripping through the grinds. But yeah, so with cold brews, it's like you get a really concentrated kind of coffee. It has a lot of caffeine, a lot of flavors. But with ice brew, you get a lot of flavor but less caffeine. So yeah, so something that could be nice in the afternoon, early evening, if you are craving coffee. I don't know, have some on hand. But yeah, ice brew is, I can dig it. I don't like it because I don't like coffee, but I can dig it. I don't know, where was I? I don't know, I still don't like coffee. I think making coffee has been fun. I've only made coffee for myself to drink, and so I don't actually know if the coffee I'm making is objectively good or not. And so, yeah, if I were to continue this journey and this experiment, I think that would probably be the next step in this process. So making coffee for someone else and having them assess whether or not it tastes good or not. This video has been really awkward, but I hope that those of you who have been following my coffee journey have enjoyed my ramblings on the subject matter. And if I do post up new coffee stories, feel free to share your thoughts. And also, if you enjoy coffee, what kind of coffee do you enjoy? What kind of coffee beans do you enjoy? Let me know, because I would like to know, in case there is some variation of coffee out in the world that I actually do enjoy, but I have not discovered yet. So let me know. Smash that like button, comment, subscribe if you want to, I don't know, whatever. Alright, peace out. So, turns out being a YouTuber is actually a lot harder than it looks. I have no idea what I'm doing, and this is really awkward.